There was a kind of bad problem last night over here. There was a tornado warning. We were told that we should hide in the cellar. House doesn't have any cellar. There's no place to hide. Not every house comes equipped with a basement or an attic. Um, this one has a kind of an attic, but not one that a human could get into, and it has no cellar. So, one thing though that I did tell my brother about was immediately when I heard about when the rain started drenching everything and they came on very suddenly and very strongly, was protect the tomato plants because they're about to be wiped out. And I texted my brother. I called him and he was able to see it on his TTY. He has TTY now. He is deaf. He has TTY on the landline phone. And I told him, put something over the tomato plants or we're not going to have any tomatoes in our garden. And he did put a plastic tarp over the tomatoes, so he did protect them, and they're still growing today. And again, that reminds me of the point that I made before. Rural people often have attitudes that are kind of fatalistic, even pessimistic. And there's a reason for this. It might be adaptive to a rural environment because much of what happens in a rural environment is beyond human control. In fact, I'm reminded of something that I saw as a child in a book about questions to written letters to the late Christian evangelist Billy Graham, and his answers. And there was something in there that was a very, very short letter, just one sentence, but very poignant. How can we believe God loves us when He destroyed our entire peach crop? So when I read that, and even in retrospect, and I read it as a kid, those were farmers. They were depending on that peach crop. It was destroyed by the weather. And they were clearly heartbroken by it. I don't remember what Billy Graham's answer was. I'm certain it was something like, that God makes the rain pour on good and bad alike, and we all have to go through our trials and, read Job or something similar. But the fact is, rural people can adopt very fatalistic attitudes as an adaptation to a rural environment. And then when the culture urbanizes, the attitudes and the values which were adaptive to the environment are no longer adaptive. They become maladaptive. They can become destructive. because you're expected to be more assertive, or to have more control over things in an urban environment than in a rural environment. But they bring into the urban environment the attitudes with which they were raised or enculturated. And those attitudes which help them to survive in one environment now make for failure when the environment changes. But anyway, getting back to our situation, our house is still standing. Our tomato plants are still